All right. We'd like to honor those that have taken the time to join us this morning and started on time. So, good morning, colleagues, partners, and sector stakeholders, and welcome to today's webinar. South Africa's global business services sector is at a crucial juncture, demonstrating its ability to create employment, support inclusive growth, attract investment, and contribute to the country's transformation agenda. Transformation is not just compliance, it is a collective commitment to building a more inclusive, competitive, and resilient economy where ownership, skills development, enterprise participation, and supplier inclusion drive sustainable commercial and social value. As Professor, we acknowledge the complex and evolving B-BBEE environment, and many businesses are improving their scorecard outcomes, seeking clarity on ownership requirements, or finding practical ways to unlock value through enterprise and supplier development. Today's session, hosted by Professor in partnership with Eruditio, aims to provide clarity, learning, and engagement. We want to help businesses move with confidence, identify improvement opportunities, avoid compliance pitfalls, and align transformation initiatives with broader business objectives. The discussion will focus on key areas for meaningful and measurable transformation. Eruditio will share insights into compliant ownership solutions that may provide ownership recognition without selling equity, where permitted under the applicable B-BBEE codes and ownership models. This webinar reaffirms the sector's commitment to strategic, credible, and impactful transformation that strengthens businesses, expands participation, opportunity, and shared prosperity. I invite you to engage openly, ask questions, and consider how transformation can be deliberately embedded into your organization's growth strategy. And now I'd like to hand over to Eruditio CEO, Marion Clate, and her team. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Lynn. Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to you on this chilly day. On behalf of Eruditio Skills Development Consultants, I'd like to thank Pepesa for partnering with us for today's session, and really to thank all of you for taking the time to join us. My name is Dr. Marion Clate, and as Lynn said, I'm the CEO of Eruditio Skills Development Consultant. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Eruditio, please, if you just allow me to briefly introduce who we are and what we do. We're very proud to be a 100% Black-owned Level 1 B-BBEE organization. And we specialize in skills development, transformation, and enterprise support. We've been in operation for over a decade, in fact, close to two decades. And our focus is really on helping organizations translate transformation objectives into practical, sustainable skills programs that really create measurable value for both the business and for the individuals, of course, attending the training, our beneficiaries. We've got quite a huge focus of being all inclusive, making sure that all our training has a minimum of 5% catering for candidates with disabilities. And I think really in a nutshell, our goal is to drive economic sustainability. And I'll touch on that again a little later. But we work across South Africa with corporates, SMMEs, communities, young people. And like I said, our focus is on creating meaningful opportunities for people from disadvantaged backgrounds through skills development, employability initiatives, and enterprise support. And I'm sure you'll agree with us that it's very important, it's critical that if we are doing skills development, it has to be a portable facilitation tool to getting our youth and our beneficiaries into employment opportunities, because you really water down the effects of skills development if there isn't any employability at the end of that journey. So that is something we really drive hard, is to create those opportunities. From a corporate perspective, we partner with organizations to address a range of skills development and transformation requirements. And this is inclusive of accredited training. I mean, that being said, all our training is bespoke. So if you're looking to do an initiative that's not falling in the ambit of a learnership, and you just want a learning a unit standard that's going to speak to a gap in your organization, like communication skills, conflict resolutions, we definitely do that because we drive bespoke training. So it's learnership, workplace skills initiatives, enterprise and supplier development, and in general, just your broader triple B support. And Donovan's going to go into that, like Lynn said. But I think we're really proud to have worked with leading organizations, including APSA, Shell, Discovery, Investec, among others. So really not just your big corporates, ranging it across your smaller organizations, your SMMEs as well. And these partnerships, what they have allowed us is to gain experience across different industries, organizational environments, and to understand that transformation cannot be approached with a one size fits all solution. Our approach is therefore very much about understanding your organization, coming in, doing an analysis and identifying the opportunities, and then developing a solution that is both compliant, that's critical, and commercially meaningful. Eruditio is, like I also said, is also accredited with a number of relevant quality assurance and sector bodies, such as your QCTO, WNR CETA, Services CETA, MICT CETA, across a range of different bodies. And what this really does, it enables us to support clients across a broad range of skills development interventions and sectors. Because I think you'll all agree, while skill development remains an important part of our business, our work has increasing as Eruditio has increased and expanded into triple broader BEE and the transformation space, importantly ownership solutions. We recognize, and that's why we're all here today, is we recognize that ownership can be one of the more complex areas of the triple BEE scorecard, particularly for organizations that may not be in a position to pursue a traditional equity transaction. And our objective, my apologies for today, is to help organizations understand the different options available to help them and identify appropriate, compliant, and sustainable transformation solutions that align with their broader business strategy. We're very mindful of the fact that a lot of multinationals are very hesitant to go out and transfer equity of their business to South African Black beneficiaries, and that's what we're really going to dig into today. And that being said, that brings me to the purpose of today's session. We want this, like Lynn said, to be a practical conversation, one that helps organizations better understand the BEE landscape, identify those opportunities to improve their position, and avoid those common pitfalls that we see so often. And excuse me, and more importantly, look at transformation as more than simply a compliance exercise. I always like to say, and I always drive, that we at Eruditio are into the business of driving impact as much as we are compliance. So to take us through that conversation, I'm pleased to introduce Donovan Hornsby. Donovan is a transformation specialist with over 18 years of experience advising organizations across South Africa on triple BEE, employment equity, skills development, and transformation strategy. And especially now that we're in the employment equity season, Donovan comes with a wealth of experience. You're really in good hands today. He's worked with both multinationals and local organizations across various industries. And he really brings a strong combination of technical expertise and practical consulting experience. Donovan also co-founded Project Nomzamo, a public and private initiative where he combined triple BEE objectives, youth employment, and community healthcare. He's, like I said, he's ideally positioned to bring both the technical and perspective to today's discussion. So once again, thank you to everyone for joining us. We hope today's session provides you with practical insights that you can take back into your organizations, and more importantly, use this session to identify opportunities to make your transformation session or strategy work harder for your business. That's what it's all. That's what it's all about. We will have a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar, and we encourage you to make use of this opportunity to raise any questions you may have. We also very happy to share our contact details in the chat. Should you wish to engage us after the session, you're more than welcome to do so. And I think without further ado, thank you for your time. I'm going to hand over to Donovan, who's going to get into the nuts and the bolts of today's discussion. Thank you very much, Donovan. Over to you.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for allowing yourselves to join the session this morning. My name is Donovan Hornsby. I've been in the BE environment for a number of years. But today's session, why are we here? We are to discuss, based on the latest available information, where is BEE heading to? As an organization in South Africa or a company entering into South Africa, what do you need to be aware of? So this is very important for us. I'm going to go through a presentation. It'll be roughly between 30 and 40 minutes in length. I get excited when I chat about B-BBEE or transformation. It's really close to my heart, and I enjoy the interactions as well. Please ask questions in the chat box. We will be taking them towards the end to make sure people don't fall asleep so early in the morning. I will give an opportunity halfway through to also give some opportunities for some questions there as well. So before we even start, the critical thing that we always ask organizations or we ask ourselves is, what is the understanding of the BE environment? Why is transformation important? And these are the topics we're going to discuss today. We're going to try and simplify it as best as possible for our audience. And this is very important to note, is that South Africa currently is opening a large investment opportunities in this country. But what do we expect in return? We expect this investment to generate inclusive South African economic participation. And this is very important as well. So we're not saying come here, leave monies here, pay to a comrade or whatever. We're saying invested in the proper manner. What we're not going to be discussing today, we're not going to be discussing the political landscape of B-BBEE or transformation. I'm not here to talk about misinformation that we find. The media independence a bit shaky at this moment, depending where you get your BE information from. And we're not here to discuss the moral imperative of B-BBEE in South Africa. We're here to guide you on the latest available information, and that is what we'll be going through in this session. So let us start. The roadmap for today, we want to let you know why BE transformation still matters. Again, information, misinformation, we have various different ideas around where BE is going. Some say it's ending, some say it's transitioning into a new period, there'll be some changes, and some believe that there'll be a whole new overall of transformation in this country. We need to look at the strengths already embedded in this industry because you're doing a lot of things that align to B-BBEE and transformation, particularly around the youth development skills. The YES initiative is quite popular as well. We're then going to touch on the scorecard. Very important, we go through all the pillars. We won't spend a lot of time on them. I'm sure a lot of people know this, but we always say just to hear one new piece of information generally is very worthwhile. This can change the scope of your strategy or even your point scoring as well. And then lastly, what we would focus on is your audit preparation. What are some of the pitfalls we see when companies get to audit and all of a sudden all that wonderful skills training is not matching the points that you thought you would get? And we don't want that to take place for any organization. So the intention is not to teach every technical rule here. It is to help organizations and the operators in this room to know where to focus based on your scorecard and how do you measure it and what is your best measurables. So we find BE is now sitting, like we said, on a global scale. It's a much bigger economic program. There's been a lot of investments in South Africa currently. We see the latest investment conference, I think it was almost $1 trillion that was invested or looked to invest into South Africa. And we find that we want the foreign direct investments to come into South Africa. Capital must enter. We want to ensure that when it enters, we're looking at people, technology, and particularly in your section. What is the local capabilities? We're talking about localization. This becomes quite critical here. And then we go over and we start talking about transformation. And in transformation, ownership, yes, sometimes it can even be a curse word. But we need to look at the realities of what it is and know that we shouldn't shun away from it. We should actually start gearing, thinking towards ownership solutions, especially in this changing landscape, which we'll get to in a bit as well. Skills development, your suppliers, upskilling suppliers. Do you have a diverse supply chain that can offer you better quality and quantity as well? Jobs and inclusion, very important driver. We find the sectors doing it already, especially with youth employment, supporting those initiatives, women, youth, people with disabilities as well as something that is already in place. And lastly, we need to understand we have the African Free Trade Agreement. South Africa is so well positioned to enter into the rest of Africa. We're almost a hub here, sitting at the bottom of Africa. Very important for us. So we can see very quickly we enter in significant investment cycle, energy, water, logistics, digitalization, African trade. We've seen things like Project Vulindlela 2 come out to talk about some of these things as well. Just energy, our water as well. So lots of opportunities to compete, not only in South Africa, but for a lot of investment. And we say, welcome to our country. Please support our local environment, help us grow our economy, support our unemployment initiatives, and let's grow together. So you can see growth must always produce South African participation. And this is very vital for all of us sitting here today. I'm going to touch on ownership here quickly because it is a lever. We talk about what is changing, where are we looking at currently, and we see ownership has been discussed quite a bit as well. And we know it's important because it is one of the 3 priority elements according to B-BBEE. So without ownership, you're already at a disadvantage. You're losing 25 points on your scorecard. As a generic entity, it's with bonus points, it's 120. So you're starting at 95, which is a level 2. That's if you maximize every other element. So we will touch on these, and there's various ownership models out there. Your direct equity, getting a strategic partner. This is really what the intentions were set up initially. Then we're looking at private equity, capital, investing capital. How can we use it to transform local suppliers, local companies in South Africa, or to help you with your own expansion opportunities? Employee share option programs. These are wonderful for employee participation. We then look at broad-based ownership schemes through trusts. And here we have a broader social impact. And these are becoming more allowed in South Africa. You'll see when we talk about the new Gazette that came out 29th of January. Remember, it's still in a draft phase. It hasn't yet been gazetted. But they're opening up the levels for ownership to say, even for multinationals, equity equivalent. We're talking about the transformation fund, even aligned to these. And these are important. And what we're saying to organizations, there's no one universal model for me to say, do this BEE model. do an ESOP, do a broad-based ownership scheme, do an equity equivalent program, look for a partner. And this all depends on a number of factors. What sector you're in, your customers, the valuation of your binding of your business, sorry, what funding opportunities there. Well, do you have control? What sort of control are you looking to part with or to partner with South African entities or role players? And these become important. So stop asking, what is ownership going to do for me now? No. Over the next 5 to 10 years, will this ownership strategy help us build and grow our businesses in South Africa? So with that, we're looking at the legislative changes. Very important. I'm just going to touch on these because they're very important, because we've seen in the last 2 years specifically, there's been a lot of changes. Okay, B-BBEE has undergone employment equity, has undergone some changes. We've seen even with regards to the transformation fund, we hear a lot about this. What does this mean? Are we prepared for these changes? What we need to be aware of? Because they're all going to come about in some format. Maybe not what we initially thought, it may not be as consistent as the drafts, but we have a roadmap to work on. So nothing's really fully changed. You still look at your 2019, there was the last amendment to the B Code of Good Practice. So we're still focusing on those elements. The direction is very clear now. What we need to do to prepare for at least the next 5 years for transformation. Changes, 2025, policy development has started. Concepts started forming. The transformation fund, we heard a lot about it, right? The first time we heard about the transformation fund, they said 3% of your revenue will give you a level 2 or a level 3 status right away. That has changed over the time, and we'll see when we talk about the redesign gazette that took place this year in January. But we find that there's been some changes. Even in ICT, there's been a policy direction process. Why? Well, our good friend Elon Musk is wanting to bring Starlink. So they needed to look at telecommunications, in particular satellite entry into South Africa. And what they've done, they've tried to make more leeway for organizations to come in and are saying, if you cannot, by any design, partner with or import shares into the South African entity, there are other levers for you. And these become very critical. And like I said, the message, we are now expanding this ownership definition where it's just not your direct ownership. And there's ways that we always say to organizations, and we're going to say in this presentation again, if you're coming into the country, you're again on the back foot, you don't have ownership, are there some short-term solutions to look into while you are looking for the right partner? That's very important. Those trust, all those principles of business become very prominent when you're looking for the correct partner for your BEE journey in South Africa. So 2026, we've seen a redesign. Gazette 54032 is very important, very key changes that we need to discuss. But right now, we see the 2019 amendments are still operative. We're waiting to hear on the draft implications as well. So right now, the message, the scorecard, currently use that, but do not wait. Try and run a scenario code future activity, because this is what's going to benchmark what do you need to be aware of, where there could be pitfalls for you going forward. So in this change, and this is the BEE design, which came in 29 January 2026, and these were very important. The first statement, 000, what was critical is they really looked at priority elements, and more importantly was the architecture or the architecture of the transformation fund. We want to integrate this not only into enterprise and supply development, all right, which is your statement 400. we're also ensuring that even multinationals that are now looking at equity equivalent investment programs, it's aligned to those principles as well. NPOs, NGOs, you can also use the transformation fund as one of those designs. So that was a big change when we were looking at statement 400, is the design particular of the transformation fund. This is there, and what it's saying to organizations is that when you're looking at your enterprise and supply development spend, generally for generic code, it'll be 3% of your net profits after tax. There's another way to do it. Instead of going it on your own, doing it by yourselves with various key stakeholders. I still recommend that. However, what it introduces to say, if this becomes too administrative for an organization, you want to align with government principles, then the transformation is something to consider. 3% into the transformation fund will give you 20 points, where the current enterprise and supply development in total gives you 15 points. So there's a 5-point gap. It can be made up though when you're looking at your bonus points. There's 4 bonus points. Right now, the way it's structured, you may not be able to get those bonus points through the transformation fund. However, we've seen the design there. And one of the key changes in enterprise and supply development is procurement. And this is putting the pressure again on why ownership could become quite critical. Remember, we said we're starting on 95 points. In procurement, we're going to see that all of a sudden the codes have changed. We're introducing new concepts for 100% Black-owned suppliers that you would start using and you would start dealing with as well. What that means, if you currently do not have 100%, because the codes look at 51% Black, you could lose up to 13 points on your scorecard straight away. That is very important. How do you make up those points? Ownership could be one of those. Again, this is all dependent on what you require, who are your stakeholders, and what they require in terms of your BEE level. So look at it holistically and then look at where ownership can fit in. It must be strategic to your business so it can grow, you can develop yourself as well. And more importantly, looking at the public procurement regulations draft that came out recently as well. It's not a BEE code specifically, but it's commercially important to suppliers to the state. They're talking about set-asides. They're looking at if you are looking at tenders above a certain threshold, have you procured from more than 51% Black-owned suppliers? If you're over a certain threshold, more than 1 million, then do you know any Black partners or organizations that you can start doing joint ventures with as well? So we can see where we are going with B-BBEE. So this moves the focus where previously we would say, well, how much do we need to spend here? All right, that's always been a pain point. And we say, look at it differently. What is the measurable impact that is going to create? Who have we supported? Does this align to not only our business, our communities that we're supporting as well? We're always doing supplier certificate chasing. It happens all the time. We get frustrated. Now we're saying, let's look at ownership sensitive procurement planning, because the shift now is saying 100% Black owned, 100% Black woman owned, and designated groups as well. So besides looking at just a certificate, we are level 7, level 6, level 5, we need to start looking at these more importantly. So once a year verification file, hey, you're not alone. There's many people, organizations that do this. It's not easy to manage B-BBEE and transformation. So now we're looking at governed evidence and impact reporting. Enterprise and supplier development, all of a sudden they say, do you have a needs analysis? Are you following? Are you monitoring, evaluating? What happens at the exits of this program? Are you keeping in touch? Are people becoming employed? Or organizations you supporting growing? And can they fit back into your own value chain? So transformation building must come into your strategy. These must form part of your budgets. This must look properly. So when we're talking about that, we are saying your current code compliance, looking at your future code simulation, and then we're looking at the budgets that you may need to implement for triple B, double E. So we're working all of those together. So where does this sector fit into South Africa? Very importantly, because what we need to understand is that there's no sector code specifically, which is quite dangerous in itself. Maybe something would come up shortly. There's been discussions. So currently, you would fall under your generic codes of good practice. These are the familiar 5 elements, all the way from ownership, management control, skills development, enterprise and supply development, and socio-economic development. I've left the yes off there. It's not part of the pillars, but it is something that you can use that can elevate your certificate. But I must caution you, sometimes you need to test where you are. You may believe you're part of the general codes. Test against the existing sectors for argument's sake. What if you're ICT focused outsourcing entity? You may form part of the ICT sector. So be very careful of that. Check with your existing consultants, with your verification agencies. This is very important. So go again, although you don't have a sector, the general codes of good practice is where you would fit in. And this ties in nicely with employment equity as well, because remember last year, first time, January 2025, employment equity came out with the sectoral targets to be in place from 1 September 2025 up until the 31st of August 2030. Now, these are your sectoral targets. So we are always saying to organizations, align legislations where possible because it will make sense for you rather than doing them in isolation and then we find they're not talking to each other. You're giving yourself an additional administrative work to do. We don't want that. So your typical sector for employment equity will fall under administration and support activities. You can use your EA 17 as a guideline for your classification. Again, the Act says, well, what if you have more people employed in different sectors or in other businesses? Maybe you cross-pollinate with different business activities. Where are you drawing the majority of your income from? And then when you're looking at your provincial or national targets you use, we always say, where's the majority number of your staff? Unless it's spread out nicely, use national. Otherwise, provincial can become important. And this can make a big difference depending what province you're from. And the focus right now is on the top 4 occupational levels: top management, senior, middle or your professionally acquired level, and your junior, which is also your skilled level as well. We find, according to the 26th Commission of Employment Equity report, that there seems to be a bottleneck when it comes to your middle professional. Getting into your senior top, we see it's become very difficult. Why? Well, one of the reasons we've found is that there is no proper succession planning. And even if there is, managers are not geared for mentoring and coaching these individuals. And this is something we strongly believe in at Eruditio, and we offer that support to organizations as well. Please, employment equity is extremely important. If anyone knows, I was talking briefly about an old R&B group called Tony, and they got a song Anniversary. I won't sing it for you now. You might get nostalgic and start dancing there as well. But it's the anniversary of the employment equity submissions. 1 September, we closed there, and a lot of organizations could find themselves in trouble if they've not been monitoring it correctly. They don't have reasons for deviation. Their committees have not been meeting. They've not been trained. Be careful. You will get fined. This is no more something where there's only a few inspectors. You didn't have to worry. They've been ramping up the number of inspectors. You will get a visit in 2027. Prepare. We can support you on this journey. So the major message I think we have for the sector is there's a lot of things you're doing. This sector is a job engine, particularly for youth, and this helps our employment problem in South Africa. But we also find is that BEE must be measured deliberately. Don't have it in isolation. Let it become part of your operating model. So structure what you already do. You do it well. Skills development. You do it very well. Employment, SED initiatives, enterprise and supplier. The YES initiatives, your industry is geared for it because you're always employing staff. And that 1 year exposure to job experience, we know the critical nature of it. People become almost 3 times more likely to be employed by having 1 year work experience. Monthly evidence, I'm sure you saw my third bullet point there. That is what we'll talk about at the end as well, the evidence pitfalls that we run into. So very quickly, these are the points. We know them. I'm not going to spend much time, but just to reiterate, ownership, management control, skills development, enterprise and supply development. We throw in procurement because preferential procurement is part of that. And then lastly, socio-economic development. I haven't included the bonus points here. But please note, ownership, skills development, enterprise and supply development are priority elements. Large entities must comply with ownership and skills and enterprise. If not, you would automatically drop 1 level. It's only 1 level, you can't drop further. So even if you're non-compliant in 2 or 3 of the elements. Qualifying small entity turnover less than 50 million rand, you need to comply with ownership as a priority element and choose between skills and enterprise and supplier. So these are very important. So your scorecard, we can see, must be managed meticulously through your recruitment activities. Who are you training? Your supplier onboarding, who are they? Do they have the correct credentials? We find a big problem here is that with your suppliers or sometimes not legally compliant. Support them on that journey as well. Management appointments, we'll see in your industry very quickly that that also becomes a bottleneck. We have a lot of agents. They come, they go. But when it comes through to getting towards your managers, your senior top, we have very few people there, almost like your pyramid structure. We don't need that many. How do we position that people can grow better while there's limited opportunities in those levels? What can we do? Your yes intake, again, in your evidence collection. Your natural strengths you already have. I'm reiterating some of these: large youth intake, high training volumes, employee data is already systemized. Yes, can align with real hiring because that absorption becomes quite critical. And there's potential career pipeline that is mapped out as well. Some of the gaps, ownership often remains unresolved. We don't like talking too much about it. Senior management lags with regards to staff demographics. Payroll targets can be large. So we talk about training, it's done well, but because of a large payroll, there's a high percentage or a high rand value that you would need to spend. Supplier spend is often more on tech-heavy support. How do we change that? Who do we look into our supply chain that can offer us BEE points against traditional what we're doing now? And we find that evidence, especially going into verification, is often fragmented. Things are not talking to each other. The pay slip when I want to interview someone says I'm a sales agent. But when I come into the audit and on the claim sheet, it said I'm a receptionist, you're going to have a big problem. We can laugh about that, but we find these common mistakes always occurring as well. So ownership, what is the big decision? What is the right solution? We're not here to tell you what the right solution is for your business. There's a lot of things you would need to take into consideration, your tax obligations, etc. the control you want to have, where you want to actually look at development and support. Can a South African entity sell or issue equity? Okay, and there's South African operations. Yeah, we include in your multinationals. So if you're saying yes, we can. We're allowed to sell equity in a South African, or if you're already local, then you can look at things like direct equity. Get a shareholder, get a corporation, partner with them. This takes time. It's not easy. People have been burnt in the past. We learn from these lessons. And we are saying, if this is something that we need to transition into slower, what are some short stop gaps? I don't like to tell them as short stop gaps because they're not. They're meaningful, they're impactful. But then you can look at employee share schemes. Can look at broad-based ownership schemes, trusts. Private equity model is also quite useful for these as well. But if you're saying, no, look, we're multinational, we can't do any sale in the South African operation. Guess what? There's still opportunities. Sale of assets, we don't really talk about it. BPOs, you'd find that you already have some good assets. You set up the call center, for example. There's assets there, there's equipment, machines. Can you sell part of that business to a qualifying black entity or beneficiary to allow ownership points? Yes, you can. And equity equivalent programs for qualifying multinationals as well. We really are encouraging that. We've seen in terms of the current legislation, they're even opening up the window for Starlink. They're about to come in through an equity equivalent program, not giving up control of their shares, but they're entering into a transaction with government where over a period of anywhere ranging from 5 to 10 years, there will be investment into capacity building of South African people, industry, also assets, infrastructure becomes vitally important. So we're very quickly, and like I said, not every model is equal. Some create real value, real equity from the onset. Others are alternatives, or what we like to say, uh, your transitional mechanisms. While you're looking, what can you do? So, a model, direct black equity, best fits is for your local entities. But again, if you don't have a restriction as a multinational, this is excellent. It's clear, it's conventional. You get your full scoring. However, what if you're looking at employee share ownership programs, your broad-based trusts, your private equity? This model can fit both local and multinationals. And here we have a broader impact where governance is very critical. So again, we're looking at who do you want involved in your business decisions? How much control are you willing to let go of? And how can you work it? Do you want to grow your communities around your broader sense? Do you want your employees to benefit? What about investment opportunities through private equity can become quite critical. Statement 102, lovely sale of assets. And this is something that could be considered because there's no dilution in terms of any shareholding. There's obviously rules embedded for this where the partner or the business that is been sold to must be 51% black owned. The asset can't be something that is flimsy, it's not working, it's going to lose value. It must have commercial value to it. You should be able to use it to drive and create more business in terms of that black company buying from you as well. And what's nice about this model as well is that you find the 3-year transfer of skills investment, and thereafter, if everything works out correct, you perpetually get your BE points until something could happen either to that entity or the legislation changes. And we can see equity equivalent programs qualifying beneficiaries for multinational. So what are we saying? Your sequence. What is your need? What does your global policy say? Looking at these, we then decide the ownership route. We look at the valuation. Can we get funding for direct partners? Difficult. Funding is not easy. Then we're looking at your BEE modeling in terms of your full scorecard. What level do you need? And we find that this will vary. You have key stakeholders you need to report into. We find sometimes they say, hey, by the way, you're bringing in jobs, you're creating all this value. Just by doing so, level 8 is sufficient for now. Level 8, you don't need to worry about ownership. But when that position changes, the conversation now is saying, we may want you to be a level 4, level 3. All of a sudden, we've seen procurement could change, could hurt you. How do you then get these points in order to maximize your scorecard? And it's through ownership. We then look at legal tax design for that. And very critical, in South Africa, to score the full points on ownership, we're looking at 25%. And this is made up, remember, through women participation, youth participation, designated groups as well. So we are saying to organizations, you don't even need the full 25 points. You may find that you need half those points. So what we find is that if you're looking at issues, in fact, let me make it a bit more clear. To not be discounted on ownership, you need to ensure that you have points for net value. Who owns shares? Are these shares being paid up? Interesting. Are they being paid up? There's nothing in the codes to say give away shares. In fact, we frown upon it in South Africa. There must be a monetary flow. Very important as well. We are not a Mickey Mouse country. We're trying to do things properly. We may have people behave that way, but our underlying principles is that we want to do things properly. So with net value, we're finding not to be discounted, a minimum of 10% must be in the hands of Black South Africans. If you want to look at your scorecard for ownership, what is minimum? You will still get points even if you only got 5% is prorated, but this becomes critical, minimum 10% not to be discounted. Again, the models very quickly, your ESOPs, your employee participation. Yes, are they things that gates? In other words, what are some of your shortfalls or what's your pitfalls for ESOPs? Well, ESOPs are wonderful because you get employee engagement, retention, but sometimes it's difficult to set up because who are the beneficiaries? You need to define the class of who's going to benefit from them. And what you may also find is that when you come to exit, what if BE changes in 4 or 5 years? They say, hey, only the transformation fund. How do you exit on your ownership? What is the easiest way? What will work best for your organization? ESOPs can become quite dicey sometimes. Make sure your governance, your information on upfront is very clear. Broad-based ownership schemes, well, yeah, very important. Define your participants. And how this model works quite nicely is that, again, what we find here is that there's no interference in your business in terms of making strategic decisions. However, people in this trust through your broad base, if you're setting up a trust, we love an educational trust for Eruditio, with skill development as our forte. We really believe strongly in it and gearing people to become more skilled participants. And this has become very critical for organizations saying, well, we don't really want direct, at this moment. We're still gearing, we're looking for partners. We're not too sure about our employees, how we're going to grow. This could be a very nice model for you because you're looking at participation for youth, skilling up people, SMME development, getting their compliance right as well becomes very important. And if you set it up the right way, where we're looking at the element even of share options, which is allowed under the code of good practice, yeah, you would find that the money flow, your exit strategy could be much cleaner and easier for you as an organization. They all come with challenges. When I mention easier, it doesn't mean it's easy. It just means it could be easier than some of the other structures. And we've seen a big shift now to broaden participation in ownership, like I've mentioned, ICASA licenses for telecommunications satellites. That is opening all of a sudden to say equity equivalent programs. You can even use the transformation trust as part of that as well. So this is just an example of a broad-based ownership scheme. And this connects ownership to the social purpose of the organization. So here's a measured entity. You then look at shares you set up a trust or foundation, broad-based ownership scheme. You define your broad beneficiaries. And so possible themes could be unemployed youth, women, persons with disabilities. We're looking at skills like digital education, partnering, empowering local communities, SMMEs as well, and we're creating future talent pipelines. We're not on an equal footing in South Africa with regards to education, schools, resources, and we're saying support this. But we're very careful. This cannot be another CSI masked as an ownership share option. That's very separate. We want to see real value created. Dividends must flow to beneficiaries. We always find this. Every year, shares are being paid back through dividends. Every year. Year one, year two, year three. And we find that there's no real benefit for the participants. At what point are they going to start realizing economic interest flow through to them? And also, we find some organizations where shares are paid up. They're basically saying every year there's no dividend, no dividend, no dividend, nothing. We are not looking at that. You could be prejudiced where VA will wake up one day and say, after these last 4 years, we've been verifying you. Nothing is flowing. There's no economic interest that we can see happening here. Therefore, we're going to prejudice your scorecard and give you no points for economic interest. Very, very scary, and it's a risk that you do not want to take. So that is really looking at ownership. Let me just come back quickly. I'm sure there's questions. We'll get into them towards the end. But we can see that there's various models for that. Just to touch very quickly, equity equivalent program, you're looking at 25% of your South African operations or 4% of your revenue. This is the amount that you would need to invest. And you don't invest it once off. This can be anywhere between a 5 and 10-year scale. This is very critical because equity equivalent look at basically enhanced skill development initiatives, enterprise and supply development initiatives as well. And all of a sudden, they've thrown in the transformation fund as well. Wonderful concept. It's looking to support Black businesses support, during, and post support as well. The concept is wonderful. We hope that the implementers of it are just as good, and we can stay away from any corruption that may try and creep in. I think that's the biggest worry for all entities as well. So equity equivalent programs, very useful. We want them. You cannot give shares in South Africa. You're stuck. You're on a back foot. The incentive scheme, even from the DTIC, is saying we'll give you grants for expansion, but we want to see your BEE scorecard. You may want to consider ownership then as a very important lever for your organization. That is ownership. I can't stick on it because I'm sure there's quite a lot of questions that will come up. These next slides are just looking at what each element is. Very quick, one slide each, just so you're aware of what it is. And then we will conclude by looking at what are some of the issues around preparing for your verification. So we've already looked at your overall information, legislation, where we are. We've seen transformation is still important as well. We've looked at the industry. There are a lot of things you're doing well: skill development, employment, enterprise, socioeconomic development, the LES initiative as well. But now when we're looking at all the other elements to build your scorecard, these are some of the things we need to note. So strategically, we find your agents, your semi-skilled, excellent. Okay. Large turnover, large employment opportunities. It's not just easy to get the demographics correct, depending on where you are in South Africa. Because remember, a lot of call centers, for example, are serving the international market. So they talk about neutral accent. I hope I have a neutral accent so everyone can understand, but these are some of the challenges. We're then looking at what's your next level, and we find here we have some of your coaches just before your team leaders, which we're finding less when we're moving up your occupational levels from semi-skilled, moving into your skilled, moving into your professional, which is more of your operation managers, and into your senior leadership. And we can see it shrinks as we get towards the top. So we're not just asking who manages, not only who works there, because it's very important that management, people making decisions, should reflect your employment equity demographics, sectoral targets, and economically active population, whether it's provincial or national. Very important to align both of them for your scorecard. Could be an issue here. We find a lot of entities struggle. Remember your full scorecard, know where you are, what level you want, and then work within this. EE has given a 5-year roadmap to try and meet certain sectoral targets. And we're saying to organizations, use that while you're looking at BEE skills as well. Very important. If you're not doing employment equity correct, your committee is not meeting, you find that there's no responsibility from senior management, there's no budget allocated, people aren't being trained, your committee, your managers don't understand what EE and diversity is. And you submit your EEA 2 and 4 now between 1 September and 15 January, an inspector visits you and they find that you've deviated from year one. What you said you're going to hire, you didn't get. And now we also find that your committees haven't been meeting quarterly and you don't have justifiable reasons for your deviation. It's not documented, there's no evidence. An inspector can then reject your employment equity. They'll send an email to you saying, please get hold of your verification agency. If you do BEE, they must remove any points they've given you for management control. They will follow up with your certificate if they find it. They'll follow up with your VA. And this is an embarrassment to organizations. You do not want this egg on your face. Okay, so they're taking employment equity extremely serious. Skill development, a lot of training. There's even training centers that are aligned to your business as well. The question is, how much of this training can we recognize? Because this is some of the pitfalls. Is it accredited? Is it unaccredited? Remember, if it's unaccredited, there's a cap on that. You know, it's up to 25% of your overall spend can be unaccredited training. Also, don't forget the cost of your SDF, your skills development facilitator, the cost of your training manager, the cost of keeping your training center up to date. These can all form part of your evidence for skills development. So very important, map what training. The categories, remember, BE is aligned to your subracial components, which is your employment equity. Who are we looking at various levels to be skilled, and more importantly, the demographics? Are you giving more opportunities to those that align to the economically active population of either your province or nationally? Capture evidence, attendance registers, your dates, the cost, proof of payments. These must align. They will ask you, give me your EEA1 form to confirm that the learner was indeed an African male or was disabled. Don't do it at the last minute. These are good business practices. Do them now. So capture all this evidence. At the end, we do not want to see your claim sheet saying, Mr. Emmanuel only got 25,000 in training, and all of a sudden the records are saying, well, actually it was 24,000, wasn't 25. That 1,000 difference means they relook at everything, because now they become worried about fronting and you get a lot of additional work where they ask for new samples, etc. Align your learnerships to ensure that unemployed people, people that are disabled, are given an opportunity. And don't forget about the absorption. Absorption does not mean that I'm an employee from a 3-month contract, limited duration. It should be an open-ended contract. There are instances where if there's a 5-year project you have from government to say you could discuss this with your verification agency and motivate that that would count for permanent employment as well. We have seen instances where they would accept it and reconcile your payroll, your leviable amount. Remember, that's the target. So we find that there's generally a smaller figure than your actual payroll if you're looking in your financials. And make sure your workplace skills plan, not only you submitted it, but that it was approved. That approval becomes very important. You find you've done everything you've submitted, and they ask you for this, and you realize that actually we didn't get any letter. We're not too sure if we were approved or were not approved. Can jeopardize all your points under skills development. And moving now into that, so we can see the progression, ownership, who are your people that you're employing, who's making decisions, skill development, are you capacitating people, bringing them up through your system, not only your own employees, your community, people around you as well. And now we're saying, who are you buying from? Or local people around you that you're procuring from. So some things are difficult to change. Your technology platform that you may be using, your Microsofts that are coming in, this also ties into your global software. Some of them are imports that can be excluded, which is very good, but some of them may not be able to, especially if they have operations in South Africa that are not BEE compliant. So your property, your landlords, we find something harder to change or move. We can't just move properties, and these generally are your biggest spend items. What we can address now and approve, your recruitment providers, if you have any, who are they? You spend a lot of money with them. Your training providers, are they compliant? Not only in terms of accreditation, but their BEE certificates. If you're using an outsourced training where you've got a whole lot of learnerships, make sure that they are very good BE levels. It's going to help your scorecard. Cleaning, security, who are you using? Are you looking at Black-owned suppliers, transport, wellness, and even your local IT? So build a supplier database before this spend happens. Analyze it throughout the year. Where can you pivot? Where can't you pivot? Because we want you to ensure that quality remains. And we are. There are lots of Black businesses where quality is embedded into what they do. So they're out there. We can help you find them, but they are out there. Please engage. Don't sit and say there's nobody out there. So with this in procurement, remember enterprise and supply development is quite important. And in your ecosystem, again, your recruitment agencies, your training providers, transport, maybe your IT support. And we're saying supplier development should move into procurement over time. Because like we said, you're going to lose points, no 100% Black-owned suppliers. How can you make this up? What are you going to do? If you're capacitating your supply chain now, they can move in and give you more services at a higher spend value as well. And enterprise development, this can seed future suppliers for yourself. So outside of your supply chain, who as well can support you, healthcare providers. We're not just looking at who's ring fifth in your supply chain. Who else can we start looking at and slowly bringing them into not only our sector, but into your company as well? And measure both spend and your commercial milestones. Are these talking to each other? Because as you can see, if we're spending a lot of money in enterprise and supply development, where else are we winning? We can win by bringing them into our supply chain as well. Local is lekker. I love this. This is AI generated, by the way. But imagine our creativity, ghost pops in aromat flavor. Ha. Although aromat is banned in some parts of the world, China, they still love their MSG. So we have our aromat flavor. And wouldn't it be wonderful to have some Oros flavored jelly tots? Local is lekker, giving people an opportunities We are extremely creative. There's a reason the world is still coming to invest in South Africa, regardless of some of the problems that we may have. So your yes, and this is coming to the end, because we're looking at yes now, and we're saying with yes, well, where are we? You are designed for this. Make sure you plan your recruitment intake properly. One of the things we find is that when you are looking at your numbers for yes, you may do it incorrectly. Give an example. If you're looking at um, your turnover, your revenue, remember that's one aspect of looking at it. And you have management accounts, but remember you need to plan because you need them to be in place before your audit. And your management account is saying you on 395 million. You then implement your yes youth numbers. It will be around about 13 you would need, and you're excited, you're happy, you got this. But you get your financials signed off a bit later in December, and all of a sudden it tells you actually you're 410 million. Okay, you've moved the needle slightly. That means you need 14 years, one more. If you did not plan for 14, your initiatives will count for nothing. There's no pro rata in yes. You will score no value in yes. You will not be able to go up either one or up to 2 levels on your BEE scorecard. And very importantly, if people drop off, make sure you're tracking it, you're replacing on time, and at the end, you can show that there was valuable work experience that they've gotten from your organization. So with that, we find in conclusion, this is where people lose points generally on verification when they get there. Training, it registers just on matching. People aren't signing it properly, or we don't have demographics because we're scared to use it. Find a way to map demographics, training registers, signatures, all of that, and align it to your proof of payments, your invoices, the prospectus from the course. If you're using external training providers, what is their accreditation? We've seen some pitfalls here when it comes to bursary spend. We do it for everyone, and then all of a sudden we realize that, hey, they're not accredited as a higher education institution. Procurement as well, your affidavits. Wow, there's so many problems with affidavits. Something's not ticked. At the top they say, oh, your owner, managing member, director, please circle one. And people leave it blank. It will be rejected. So please make sure your procurement validity of your certificates, very important. We can support you with that as Eruditio as well. Enterprise and supply development, your agreements, are they signed? Have you done the proper needs analysis? What is the impact? Yes. Do you have your contracts? What about absorption afterwards? Do you have that evidence? Remember, you need to absorb a certain percentage for yes. If you're going into your ownership, your agreements become very important. Your registers, its net value, who's it going through. If you're using things like ESOPs or broad-based schemes or trusts, who are your identified beneficiaries? Your class identified become important. And in management, obviously organograms, make sure your occupational levels are correctly identified. What are you using for job descriptions? Your pay scale. How do you come with it? Are you using Pyramid's, Hayes, your old systems to come up with job descriptions and pay? So build this audit pack throughout the year. Don't wait till the last minute. So in summary, we've looked at all the elements. We know the importance. And what I'm saying to you is that don't leave it. An inch of movement will be better than a kilometer of intentions. Start your journey now. And where we can support, do a baseline assessment. Know where you are. Design your roadmap going forward. Look at scenario planning and then execute. Things like supplier cleanup, your evidence file, and your monthly dashboards become very important. So B is not only a compliance certificate, become practical operating model for job skill suppliers and ownership. And with that, I've come to the end of my presentation. I would open up the floor for any questions. I'm sure we have them already. Again, I got excited. I think I chatted till the end, but you're welcome now, and we will take any questions in the time we have left.
I think maybe, Donovan, it's also worth saying that this can become a very complex topic to digest, lots of legislation. And we are to assist as Eruditio. So if you'd like, I've put my number in the chat, both my mobile number and the office number. Please feel free to reach out to us. I'll also put my email address, and we're happy to have a one-on-one session, especially if you think of anything that you'd like to ask us after the webinar, or if you'd like just to connect with us, we're happy to come out and do a no obligation assessment and take it from there. But I think the real crux of the matter is that this is not part of most businesses' core business, and your focus is on running your BPOs. So let the experts come out and let the experts do the heavy lifting and take that away from you whilst you concentrate on your core business.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Marion. Is there any questions from the audience? Anything you just want some clarity on? Anything that's a pain point to you? You're very worried. Again, we are here to assist. Please get a hold of Eruditio, and we can hold a meeting with you just to ensure you have a better understanding of what you need to implement going forward.
Sure.
Donovan, I have a question. I just wanted to check. I know there's many, many moving parts in this very broad, expansive topic. What is the likelihood of some of these codes and some of these requirements changing over the short term? Because I do know that a lot of these things often change, and sometimes people can't really keep up, right? So, what is the likelihood that any of this is going to change in the foreseeable future?
Thank you for that question. Looking at and engaging with various experts in the industry, both private, political, etc., what we are confident of is that BEE is not going away anytime soon. We can see in the policies, in fact, they are strengthening BEE in terms of ensuring that it's no longer a tick box exercise, it's more meaningful, there's better outcomes that are embedded in these as well. We know the elections are coming, and that could change the landscape. We don't know. But what we do know is that the policy, they've been discussed, they're in Parliament currently, which is your 26 January regulations. These are looking at coming into the first quarter of next year, where they could be gazetted. And that really is where the change comes in. So once that comes into play with the Draft Procurement Act, that could take a bit longer. We then know that your ownership, or not, I shouldn't say just ownership, but looking at your BEE level overall will become very critical. They're really looking at drivers for statement 400 under procurement with the transformation fund as well. So these are critical, and we're saying to organizations, government may change. We believe these are coming. Map scenarios for yourself now. See that if should these changes come about, are you geared? Because we don't want to be surprised. Some sectors were very surprised. The legal sector did not think the BE code would be gazetted without what they considered proper consultations. It came out. 8 companies had to deal with it, and they needed to comply. And all of a sudden, they found themselves in a boat because they were waiting for clarity. And when it finally came, they realized that it was too late to implement it in their business. So be cautious of it. We're still looking at the 2019 codes, which is the last amendment, but prepare yourself. We don't believe, like I say, BEE will go away anytime soon, but they are changing the model. They're trying to cut out the middleman, the corruption, ownership only being on individuals, and they're trying to broaden the aspect. So companies really should start looking at it. how best it works into their operating model, and how best they can use transformation to grow their own business and the communities in which they serve. Okay. Did I answer your question, Lynn?
Thank you, Donovan. Thank you.
Okay.
I think
Any
we're
other
all a bit
questions?
shell-shocked. I think we're all a bit shell-shocked. This is a very weighty, hefty discussion. So I just wanted to also, now that I have the mic, thank yourself and Marion so much for giving us this valuable information. I think we really need these tools to be able to run our businesses better and to be able to do the things that we need to do to transform the sector and the landscape. So thank you very much for the session.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure, Lynn. Thank you to you and your team at Papesa for having us. It was an absolute honor. And once again, if anyone needs to contact us, please, the contact details are there. Or if you reach out to Lynn, I'm sure Lynn will be happy to share them. But thank you very much for your time, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a lovely day further.
Thank you. Bye-bye.